Ladies and gentlemen,
Garfield and Friends.
It's Chinese New Year, and John takes Garfield to Chinatown for dinner. You know, that famous Chinese district of Muncie, Indiana, right next to the dairy farm and across the street from the Piggly Wiggly. John and Garfield head inside of the aptly titled restaurant and try to get a table. I'm already bracing myself for the inevitable bad Asian caricatures in this episode, and this Mickey Rooney side profile isn't giving me any reassurance. But this dude doesn't even stick around long enough for me to tell, because the sight of Garfield sends him running. And honestly, he sounds less like Long Duck Dong and more like the Mike Myers Cat in the Hat.
You can have one from column A and one from column B.
I'll have all from column A and all from column B.
Before John can say poo-poo platter, a woman tells him to come speak with her in regards to his cat. If early 2000s Flash animation taught me anything, I know what's about to happen to Garfield.
Did you ever think when you eat Chinese, it ain't pork or chicken but a fat Siamese? Yet the food tastes great so you don't complain. But that's not chicken in your chicken chow mein. Seems to me I ordered sweet and sour pork, but Garfield's on my fork. He's purring here on my fork. There's a cat in the kettle at the Peking Moon, the place that I eat every day at noon. They can feed your cat and you'll never know. Once they wrap it up in dough, boys, they fry it real crisp in dough.
This screen tells a legend of the dragon and the cat.
So this woman starts telling the story of an ancient Chinese legend involving a cat and a dragon. This is all very nice, but remember that they haven't even placed their orders yet. I can't tell you how pissed I'd be if I sat down to eat and then some lady started babbling on for 20 minutes instead. It's like that Chinese restaurant episode of Seinfeld. It just makes me anxious and hungry. So here's the story. There was a small Chinese village that was severely impoverished. They were so starving because the dragon at the top of the mountain required their food as a sacrifice. A man and his orange cat lived in this village, and one day he asked the cat to deliver lasagna to the hungry dragon.
Be sure to give it to the dragon, or he'll eat us, oh mystifyingly obese one.
I love how Tom Hughie is clearly teetering between John having an accent or not, like Jim Davis was in the recording booth demanding that he go full Charlie Chan, but Tom didn't want to, so he just puts on a slight affectation. Speaking of Tom, you're looking fresh in those Toms, John. So anyways, as you'd expect, the cat eats all the lasagna before he makes it to the dragon cave.
Awfully small portion there.
Oh, it's part of a low cholesterol diet type thing.
You better watch out, Chinese Garfield. That's no ordinary dragon. That's Albie the racist dragon.
Well, all of the villagers chased me into this scary cave. I think it's because I'm so racist. Get your hand off my tail, you'll make it dirty.
Garfield challenges the dragon to an eating contest before he goes full-on Smaug on the village, and it turns out that eating a lot is easy when you just loop the same animation over and over and over again. So the cat eats all the dragon's food before he even has a chance to challenge Garfield. This obviously upsets the dragon, and he wins our award this episode for the most exaggerated Asian accent.
You trick at me!
The dragon chases the cat into the hills for the rest of time, which leaves the village to prosper in peace, including John, which is kind of a dick move. Your cat is being chased by a dragon in Mongolia somewhere. You don't care at all? Sure, eat your rice, whatever. So the cat and dragon were never heard from again, and the legend says that the dragon will return if you come in contact with an orange cat who has a large appetite, thus explaining people's reactions to Garfield.
Please, you take him from here at once before the dragon comes.
But after all that, they end up kicking Garfield and John out anyways. Jesus, that boring ass story and we don't even get an egg roll out of it? Chinese New Year was ruined. And can we tone it down a little bit, guys? I mean, good God, look at this man. This is just ridiculous.
Imagine dragons.
Run for my life!
Garfield, it's just a paper dragon costume for celebrating the Chinese New Year.
Yeah, that dragon may be fake, but there's a dragon in the skies right now and Daenerys is riding it. She's torching Muncie. Oh my God. Run, everybody. Run. Oh my God. Today's US Acres segment begins with Bo as a narrator explaining to us that he's not in this week's episode.
Okay, like I'm not in this episode, so I asked them if they'd let me play the narrator, and they said yeah.
Bo, buddy, you complained last episode about not having a line. You gotta get a better agent, my guy.
Man, I wish I had a line in this episode.
And according to SAG-AFTRA rules, if you have a speaking role, then you're technically part of this episode, whether you like it or not. So Bo goes on to tell us about the time that Orson slept in because Roy wasn't there to wake the farm up, even though Orson clearly has a vintage Garfield alarm clock right next to him that he could have easily used instead. I've seen the videos on those things. It'd be impossible to sleep with Lorenzo Music's sweet, soothing voice talking in your ear.
Time to get up. Time to get up. Nah, don't get up. Stay in bed. Sleep longer.
It turns out that Roy didn't wake the farm up because he went to sleep with his headphones on.
Alright, let's do this. How are you, what the fuckers? What the fuck buddies? What the fuck nicks? What the fucking-ucks? What the fuckaricans? What the fuckamollins?
Roy tells Orson that he'll do a better job the next day because he has a fancy brass bugle that he's been wanting to use. As Bo is narrating the story about Roy, some of the other characters like Sheldon and Booker keep interrupting him, wondering if it's their turn in this segment. You'll have to forgive me, it gets kind of meta in this one.
I didn't wake him up this morning like I'm supposed to do. I got to do my job or they'll find someone new.
And if they can interrupt Bo's narration, then I can interrupt their lame-ass musical numbers. A bear is trying to sleep nearby, and he comes down the hill to beat Roy's ass cause his bugle's too loud. And then we get another interruption from Wade, who thinks that he's scheduled to perform some Shakespeare, but Bo informs him that it'll actually be next week's episode.
That's next week, Wade. Much ado about Orson. You're not in this episode, man.
Oh Jesus, I don't know if that's a joke, but an entirely Shakespearean episode of US Acres sounds like the death of Garf Gab as far as I'm concerned.
Like I was saying, that was the start of Roy's problem.
Anyways, Roy keeps blowing his horn and the bear keeps coming down for a smackdown. Judging by that bear's red eyes, it looks less like insomnia and more like he's been smoking the bear up there. And why doesn't this bear just eat Roy? He walks all the way down here just to push him around a bit and then leaves. They were worried about a weasel killing chickens in the last episode, yet they live next door to a grizzly and nobody said a word? Whatever. So Roy can't wake the farm up because every time he does, the bear comes down.
Poor Roy. I wish that bear would just go to sleep for the winter.
Hey, like, the sheep's got a brainstorm.
They come up with a solution by letting Wade ramble his Shakespearean monologue in the bear cave, which eventually puts him to sleep for the winter. I really like to think that this was some brilliant meta commentary about the entertainment value of US Acres and how these characters are only useful for putting people to sleep. Even if that's not what they're going for, there's no denying that US Acres is trying to be a little more clever lately. Orson ends this segment by telling us that he might have a bigger role next episode, and I pray to God that doesn't happen, but at least a few of these jokes are a little more bearable than the drivel we're used to from these segments. And do you get it? A bearable? Do you see what I did there? Bearable? Huh?
Waka waka!
Yeah, just play the last segment. I hate to break it to you folks, but this segment peaks in the first 10 seconds. They blow their wad on the funniest line, and nothing following it even comes close.
No thanks, Emma. I just want to stand out here and eat my ice cream num-num bar.
Literally, this is the best part of this segment and possibly the episode. No thanks, Emma. I just want to stand out here and eat my ice cream num-num bar.
Shark! Shark!
But nevertheless, she persisted. Let's move on. John took the kids to the beach, and really, where are they? 'Cause there ain't no beach like this in Indiana, I can tell you that. At this point, it doesn't even feel like John still owns his house. Maybe he's one of those Whole Foods loving douchebags who travel the country in their smelly vans. John sees an attractive woman in a bathing suit, and like any respectable gentleman, he decides to follow her and harass her.
John goes gaga for a pretty face. He wouldn't catch me doing that.
Garfield scoffs at his master's weak willpower until he sees something that makes him hungry. And I'm not talking about lasagna. That's right, Garfield fucks. I think that this is the first confirmation that Garfield is sexually active in the TV show. Arlene isn't a character in this series for some reason, and I can't remember another love interest, so it's nice to see him finally chasing some tail.
Hi, I'm Garfield.
Hello, Garfield. I'm Lola.
Garfield meets Lola, this lovely little feline with a healthy libido and a sexy little two-top. I'm allowed to say these things, she's 28 in cat years. But it doesn't last long, cause Bonzo shows up and makes Garfield look like the cuckold he is.
I'm gonna make you sorry you was ever born. Come on, Lola!
Garf feels intimidated by his recent failure, and he decides to see how John picks up women and hopes that it may help him. I can tell you already, Garfield, whatever John is doing is the prime opposite of what you should be attempting. Going to John for women advice is like going to Ted Bundy for, well, women advice. I do have to say, though, it will always be funny watching John fail spectacularly when it comes to girls.
I've got a lot of women who want to go out with me. I'm thinking of having a raffle.
Oh, the winner gets a turkey?
He's like the OG Johnny Bravo, a man ahead of his time.
Well, Arbuckle, you've made a jerk of yourself again.
Wait, you're kind of cute.
In a show featuring a talking cat and a wealthy cartoonist, this is probably the most unrealistic thing I've seen yet. And to be fair, Garfield definitely has better game than John does, but somehow he's also the type who will relentlessly go after a woman with a boyfriend, which isn't very kosher, but I guess he learned it from John.
You alright? I learned it by watching you.
Bonzo gets knocked out of commission, and Lola professes her love for Garfield after all.
Oh, Garfield, do you mean that nothing will ever separate us?
Don't do it, Garfield! She'll dump you just like she did Bonzo! Just wait until she sees Top Cat, and then you're history. But he listens to my advice because their steamy, passionate affair gets cut short.
Want to join us for lasagna?
It's been nice knowing you.
That's more like it. There's the asexual king that I've been standing for all these years. But John still gets Tiffany, and that's bullshit. I'm sure we'll never see her again, so I can only assume that either she dumped him or he buried her under the floorboards. May have to wait until the true crime series to find that one out. So that was Garfield Friends, Season 2, Episode 24. I hate to say it, but that last segment kind of ruined things a bit. Sure, it wasn't terrible, but it was just kind of aimless and pretty lame, which was too bad because the US Acres portion wasn't that bad this week. It wasn't great, but it was bearable. Get it? Whatever. It was a fine episode. Nothing special, but nothing too offensive. Give me 3 gems if you have them. As always, I'd like to thank everybody who's supporting me on my Patreon. Let me read them out here. Chris Leslie, Anna Eckert, Matthew M., Kevin Sweetboy Murphy, Philip Maddox, Pablo Madoka, Daniel Reiferscheid, Jay Mitra, Olivia Carlton, Mate U, Jennifer Talver, Brendan Stoddard, Gravel Gravy, Donovan, and Sandra. Thank you all for watching Garf Gab. Thanks for supporting the show, and I will see you next time. Keep on garfing and keep on gabbing. Bye, folks.